Hi, this is Zach Greenberg. I'll be joining Chuck on the Bar Stories project this week. Don't miss it. Check it out. Oh, there we go.
Yep, you are in.
What's good, man? How we doing?
Good. Doing all right, man. I appreciate you taking the time.
Let's do it. Happy Friday, by the way. Favorite day of
Dude,
the week.
for me, being in the school right now, pretty much every day is like a Wednesday.
Okay, damn. So, yeah, it's good to catch up, man. It's been a couple years. It's been a long time.
Dude, way too long. I mean, one thing great about this project is I get to connect with a lot of you guys from 1L year and just, dude, so many people from all over the country, man. Like,
I tip my hat to you, man. You responded to my email the other day about, I asked like what your modus operandi was and why you did this. And your response was spot on. That was perfect. You're more of a philanthropist than I am. But
I try to be, man. I'm inspired by so many people that give back. Because, you know, what I find, I don't know how you feel about it, but I feel like in law school, you know, students are very like, this is my goal. I want to accomplish this. And it's all like me. And I feel like people have struggled through this. And then when they got it, they were like, okay, I'm good. And I'm just moving on with my life. I want to make all this money. But I'm like, well, there's a lot of people that are now facing what you faced, and they can benefit by you just having a conversation, or you just reaching out, texting somebody saying, hey, I failed too, it's okay. And I feel like there wasn't a lot of that going on. So I'm like, you know, there needs to be more of this. There's a new age, new era of attorneys where we don't have to be like dickheads. We don't have to just be self-centered, and we can reach out.
And I agree wholeheartedly because, you know, the whole process left such a bad taste in my mouth that for a while I didn't want anything to do with it. No ifs, ands, or buts. I don't want to talk about it. People ask, I wouldn't want to discuss it. But now, you know, enough time has
elapsed,
surpassed that now, like, I can talk about it, and it's an evolution. You know, it's a learning process. It was a good life experience. So,
all right, guys, we're back with the Bar Stories Project. I'm so honored to get Zachary Greenberg on the show. Welcome, Zach, to the Bar Stories Project. Thanks for coming on.
Chuck, man, thanks for having me. It's been a minute. It's good to catch up, and happy to come on, and let's see where the conversation really goes.
Seriously, because I don't know your story, and it has been a minute. So full disclosure, we went to the same law school our first year, Whittier Law School. We didn't have any classes together, but I did meet you several times. I always thought you were an awesome student, and now, you know, working as a complex litigation attorney in Los Angeles, originally from Seattle, Washington. You graduated same year I did, 2019, but you went to Loyola Law School. We both transferred. We'll leave that on the table as to why, but both transferred as 2Ls. You went to Loyola, I went to the U of A. So you took the bar exam in July 2019, and that wasn't the you got the result that you didn't expect, and the result that I got too. Let's talk about what that was like, going through preparing for the bar and then finding out that you didn't make it.
Yeah, man. I mean, that's $1 million question, right? I mean, I was just overwhelmed graduating school, you know, when you can finally take a couple breaths. I had a bunch of family come into town. I had some friends into town. And then that transition was a little bit tough to kind of reestablish your foundation and jump into the book. So definitely took a few days to really jump into the mix. But then once I got started, yeah, I mean, I guess there's no other way to really explain it. It's the hardest I've ever worked for anything in my entire life. Like, law school was hard, but it's not like this. And one thing that I struggled with is what you're supposed to do 8 hours every single day. You take a day off every few weeks or something like that. That's not really how my brain operates. So I would do like 3 12-hour days and then like a half day or just a day off, because I need to like regenerate my brain, start with a clean slate, reestablish my foundation, and move forward. I mean, there's no way around it. It's an exhausting process. 10 weeks, all day, every day. It's extremely exhausting, but at the same time, I think it's rewarding. Like, one thing now, looking back after the fact, you have to kind of enjoy the ride. And I know that's, you know, people probably think that's insane, but no, you really have to.
Yeah.
Because otherwise you're just going to drive yourself crazy. So leading up to it, obviously it was a crazy time period. But finding out after, I've never been so heartbroken in my entire life.
Yeah, walk us through that day of, you're anticipating the bar results and you go check your status and it doesn't say pass, it says something else.
Yeah, well, ironically, I was actually in DC. I was on the East Coast. It was one of my best friend's birthdays, so I flew out there with my other best friend. And going into it, I thought, this will be a good way to kind of keep myself preoccupied, because the days leading up to it, sun up to sundown, you're not sleeping, you're thinking about it. Your blood pressure goes up a little bit. You have to stop, countdown timers. So I thought it'd be kind of a good change of pace to get out a little bit, which was true and false to a certain extent. But no, so we went out to dinner. We went back. I went into a room kind of by myself, my homie's office, and I checked, and it just says, it could be a little bit more diplomatic, like you didn't meet the requirements. It's just like, no, failed. And I was like, damn, it's a little bit rough around the edges. But I just remember like cursing, and like I couldn't speak for a little while. And then, sooner rather than later, I was just overwhelmed with emotion. I was just crying. I cried for like hours.
Yeah. I mean, that's a very common response that I get. It's devastating.
Literally heartbroken, pure, utter devastation, cannot function, don't want to move. And, like my friends were trying to console me, which, I mean, obviously kudos to them, but almost made things kind of worse because I wanted to just kind of be by myself. But yeah, man, I've never really experienced anything like that before in my life, to be honest.
Yeah. So, I mean, what you said is like, is really, it's powerful. It's very spot on. So from what I gathered, it sounds like you were very optimistic about getting a pass result, whereas I was sort of in the air, to be honest. Like I looked at my performance and I'm like, well, I don't know how they grade these things. I've heard from so many people before me that it's like, yeah, everyone feels like they failed it. Don't worry, you'll probably be okay. So I was sort of 50-50. I'm like, I could pass, I could have failed, I don't know. Whereas I really felt, based on your response, that you were very optimistic about it.
Yeah, I mean, I took the program really seriously, and obviously everybody does, but my scores were pretty good. Like obviously I would be some above, some below, some right where I wanted to be. But then I think once you get to those last few weeks, you have to just like positivity and think it into existence. So I was like, I'm gonna pass. Positive reinforcement. I'm gonna pass. And I guess overall, my personality, I am a little bit not like cocky or conceited, but that's just kind of the way that assertive. And so yeah, I mean, I felt good going into it. I completed the program. I was ready to go. I was very diligent, and I guess I also struggled with the LSAT. I took it a few times, so I was extremely sensitive about not wanting to have that thought process about, am I going down the same path again? And I'm sure we'll get into that a little bit further into the show about the matriculation rate in some jurisdictions. But I just wanted to get it done once in one fell swoop, move on, let's keep it moving, And yeah, so that's part of the reason why I was just crushed.
Yeah. So one thing that was difficult for me, and I want to get your take on it. I'm very critical of myself. I'm my own worst critic. So I'm not going to be shy about, identifying a shortcoming and then working on that. It was hard for me to pinpoint where I fell short. To be honest, in my assessment now that I've already passed and I'm through it, I'd say it was across the board I needed to improve. But at the time, going into it the second time, I wasn't really sure whether, I guess, the approach to do better, I would attribute it to that. Like I wasn't sure where I went wrong. Did you have any certainty as to like where you fell short and what you needed to improve?
Yeah, well, I mean, first, you just got sworn in the other day, right?
Oh yeah, it was literally
Mazel tov, baby, congrats.
I mean, doing something that I'd say after failing the second time, I had some serious doubts, and I remember what I was going to say earlier, but we'll talk after the show. I had some serious doubts about continuing. I feel like everything else in my life, if I worked hard enough, I would get it. So I'm like, this has to be a sign. Like you aren't doing this thing and you keep trying. maybe it's not for you. And what I found is that all of those thoughts of self-doubt were wrong. I was just kind of psyching myself out, but I really believed that at a certain point. So to do it, it seems sort of like a formality, but for me it was like, look at look at me at this place where I thought I'd never be. And I doubted myself to the point where I really believed that. And that's why it was so important to me. Um, but I appreciate it. So we'll
No,
go on
man.
with your
Yeah, you said humble beginnings, and that couldn't like be more true. And I mean, I took the LSAT a couple. This is even like, let's go back like 5 or 6 years ago.
yeah.
I was struggling with the LSAT. I just got super mediocre scores. And
Yeah,
one
me
of the
too.
lawyers, my dad's run a law firm for about 40 years, so I had a gentle push always to go into the legal industry, you know. But anyways, one of the lawyers that I was working for said, you know, hey, maybe you can't do it. Maybe it's not for you. And to hear somebody say that just really infuriated me. And
I'm
so,
sure it inspired you in a
you
way.
know, it inspired me out of anger. But hey, I got it
Yeah, yeah,
done.
yeah.
It doesn't really matter. But looking back on that, this whole thing is really like a challenge and a test against yourself, right? And
Oh
when
yeah.
you get to that point where you're thinking, you know, am I going to be one of those people that takes it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, however many times, you know? And it's almost kind of like this energy that's always with you. Like, I don't know about you, me personally. You start law school and you're thinking, I know I have to pass the bar, but then as things kind of evolve, before you know it, you know, maybe once you finish 1L, or at least once you get halfway through your 2L, and damn sure by the start of 3L, you're starting to do like practice tests. You're starting to think about it. You're starting to learn the magnitude of the content that you have to master. And before you know it, it's just this overwhelming kind of presence in your life, and it's always there.
Hmm.
um, but not only is the whole thing a challenge to yourself, you just need to be aware of that, right? um, so my brother works at the VA, or he used to volunteer at the VA. So I think I saw one of your episodes, you were talking about like mindfulness and like meditation and whatnot. And you know, take it or leave it, that pressure is going to be there. But analogy I really liked was like, you're a rock in a river, and the water that's rushing past you is like the pressure and the stress, and you have to acknowledge it and be aware of it. But you can't get carried away, you know. And I think that ties in with your thought process of like, damn, maybe I don't have what it takes, you know, maybe I can't accomplish this. But um sorry, a little diatribe there. But no, back to your question. Between my first and second time, I just needed small improvements across the board, man. I was super close. I was a few points off. I actually kept in touch with Susan Bakshin, who's the head of bar development at Loyola, and I think she does some other work at UCLA as well. And she said it was one of like the closest she's seen. You know, maybe one or two people were closer than I was in the entire time that she'd been there. It's like 15 years. So a lot of people were like, "Oh my God, you're so close. Just you'll do it this next time and you'll kill it." But I don't know. A weird part of me almost thought it would have been a further distance, because I can almost taste it. You know, I can almost taste victory. So one other thing, I probably took a little bit more time off than I should have. You know, like 1 day a week, or you know, every now and then I took like maybe 1 or 2 weekends just off. And you know, I was that close. Maybe one of those days that would have been enough to kind of push me over that incremental loss. But I also don't think that's a really healthy way to think about it, to be honest.
Yeah. Yeah, because it's hard to say if I would have done this, the outcome would have been different. You know, like who knows? Because it's also like your performance is that time period, those 2 days. I think it's 2 days for you guys too.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, you could have done everything right, but during those 2 days, you weren't firing on all cylinders. It's really, yeah, it's hard for me to even think back and say if I would have done this in bar prep before, um, the outcome would have been different.
You 100% need to like have a clean slate going into it, right? You can't be like tired and exhausted once you start your whole thing. So you need to like, I mean, look, we're in the state of euphoria on graduating school. You
Yeah.
know, your family comes into town, you're probably having a couple pints, and you know, you need to catch up on sleep. You need to take a couple deep breaths, reset, reestablish, and then move forward. But you can't rush it. But at the same time, I know some people that didn't take it right away, which doesn't really make sense to me, because all that material is reasonably fresh. So I think ultimately there's pros and cons to both methods. But I thought it was better to take it right away, assuming you take a few days to kind of reset.
Yeah, what did you change the second time around when you know, you having done it before, you went to the big game, you went to the big show, and you knew you were that close. Did you make any changes, or did you sort of go back and to the drawing board and feel like, well, I'm on the right path, I just need to.
Yeah. Yeah, I made a couple small changes, nothing too monumental. I guess just overall consistency improved. And instead of, like I said, I would take a day off every few days and do longer study days. I cut it back to maybe like 10, 11 hours, but I would do that 5 or 6 days in a row. So just consistency, hit it early on. I definitely engage with the material a little bit more too. Like I did, I think Kaplan, or no, maybe I did Themis, I can't remember. But they have all these resources that you can use. Just take advantage of them.
Yeah.
You get X amount through your program, but there are tutors that you can do extra essays for. So it was a matter of the same time and dedication, a little bit more consistency, using the resources that are there, getting more input. I even asked like a bunch of lawyers that I've worked for before, or peers that I stay in touch with, to review some of my essays. And the biggest thing for me was, like you said, it's the final stage, the big game, right? Michael Jordan Game 7, and just going through that process. There's nothing like it. So having gone through it once and knowing that you're going to be sitting there for an hour and a half filling in a scantron before the exam starts, and seeing people throwing up in garbage cans, like just going through it
Yeah.
once put me so much more at ease. And like it's a crazy experience,
Yeah,
so
that's a great point because you know, you took it in California. It was before COVID, so it was in
yeah,
person both times.
yeah.
So I guess, you know, most of well, our students here in Arizona, we some of them want to take the California bar, and you know, now they're doing it remote for who knows how long. But they, I didn't realize the scale of it until I interviewed Lauren and talked to a couple of my friends that are still there, and I realized like, wow, we had about 600 in Phoenix for Arizona, and you guys had over 1,000 in some locations, and there's several locations. And I realized like, wow, the scale was so much bigger, and that must have been like tough because it felt big to me, 600 people in a convention center in Phoenix. But yeah, to hear the stories about taking California bar, I mean, I was blown away, to be honest. I've taken
no
bar
so
three
it's
times.
Yeah, no, it's the sheer immensity is very overwhelming. I think my room, there was like 1,000 people just in my room, but there were multiple rooms. And I don't know, call me an optimist. I try to use that to my advantage. Like you kind of blend in, like there's so many people, you can kind of go into like your own little zone and just focus on the table that's in front of you. And everything else kind of just disappears away. Like the second time, seeing people study during breaks, I'm just like, you're
No.
fucking crazy. Like, that's garbage. That's nonsense. So no, you just learn a lot going through the process, and in the long run, I consider that. I almost want to list it on my resume. It's just being able to master and conquer that is, there are a few things that resonate the same.
Yeah, most definitely, man, because I feel like I just had a conversation with a guy that was taking February bar, and he was contemplating like giving up or, you know, canceling his score after day one. And I said, you know, I'm all about individual freedom and do what you do. I'm not going to tell you what to do, but from my experience, getting the reps in makes you better. Um, and I felt that way the second time, where I almost wanted to cancel my first day score and then not come back on the second day. But I had a good friend of mine I was taking the bar with, and he talked me out of it. And yeah, I didn't pass. The outcome I anticipated happened, but I got so much better by putting in those reps during the big game. And by the third time, I was just ready to go because you know, this
Yeah,
wasn't my
you're
first
you're
time underneath the lights.
you're probably a robot at that point. It's
I
gonna
was
be memory.
for sure. Like I'd say coming into it both times, I was unsure of my abilities. I was unsure of where I was. Um, you know, there's always that feeling, I think, where you criticize yourself and say, did I do enough? But that feeling was overwhelming the first two times. The third time, it wasn't like I was super confident, but I was like, just give me, throw anything you want at me, and I'm gonna do it. Did you change your bar prep company, or did you get to do the same company um, for free?
Yeah, no, I did the same company for free, and that's another whole kind of um, component of reapproaching the exam. Do I want to spend a couple $1,000s on everything out there and go through everything? Do I want to switch programs? And I was so close. I didn't want to do that. But at the same time, it's obviously a very valid concern. You don't want to be redoing essays that you've already done. And so what I did was I basically did the program, but did it backwards. So when I started on contracts essays 1 through 5, that were still somewhat fresher in my mind at least, I started with like 10 through 6. So it was a good way to hit it just from a different angle, different exposure, different parts of your brain that you're using. So that was helpful. But as far as changing or buying, I don't know what some of the other programs, I can't even remember. That's how long it's been. But no, man, I guess if it doesn't work for you, you can, you don't want to do the same thing if it doesn't work repetitively, over and over again. So, but that wasn't really an issue for me.
So I've actually had two different schools of thought in this when I interview people. There are a lot of people that I've interviewed that have worked during bar prep and had good results, and there are others that say it's too much, can't work. I'll take out loans, but I just needed that time to study. Where were you at with the whole working during bar prep?
Yeah, so I was clerking at a firm in Hollywood, a PI firm, and there were 4 clerks. We were all just recent graduates, and we all took the exam. All 4 of us failed, which was
Wow.
like, our boss was like, "Damn, maybe I should get rid of you guys."
I had the opposite experience. I was the only one
Oh my gosh, yeah,
out
no.
of 3.
So when we revamped the second time, I spoke again to the head of bar prep at Loyola and said, "No, don't work." And for some people, there are financial limitations, which I totally understand. But for me, I left that job. It was I could have stayed on, and it probably would have led to a great job. I mean, I'm much happier where I'm at now. So luckily that worked out well.
I'm sure.
But no, man, number one priority is passing the bar. And some people say, "Oh, I was so close this time. The second time, I can spend half the amount of time, and I'll work simultaneously." And I mean, to each their own. I think that's a terrible idea. Number one priority. Yeah, go ahead.
Because that's presuming that you're gonna get the same exam again.
Yeah.
You're not going to. That happened to me. I got a set of essays the second time where I'm like, what is this crap? And it was totally different. It was a different exam. And I knew that the essays would be different, but the degree of difficulty I felt like went way up.
Yeah.
And I was like, I was kind of prepping for the same exam. So I made that mistake. And I'm like, this is a different beast. Like these exams are not the same.
Yeah. Man, it's like looking into a magic ball. You never know what you're gonna get, what you're gonna come up. But my point is, again, financially, that's one concern. But for me, I didn't want to, work and allocate half of my energy and resources to studying, and then have to take it again and again. It's like, I want to get this done. I need to move on, and I think majority of people would agree with that. I mean,
Yeah, I definitely agree with that.
Yeah,
I think it's an investment in time that you make to increase the likelihood that you pass, put yourself in the best position, I think is the best phrasing.
Yeah.
Because there's no guarantees in life, but what can I do to put myself in the best position? Well, right now, for these few months or several weeks, I have to invest my time. And yeah, I'm not going to be working, I'm not going to be making money, but that's what it's going to take. And I have to do this to set myself up for the future that I want.
I mean, the alternative is to not pass, and then you take it however many more times, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times. And, financially you're in a worse position at that point, because once you pass, you can get, a lawyer salary. And
the long-term effects are
and
so much worse.
There was a handful of people I kept in touch with who didn't pass the first time. And out of all the ones who worked part-time and studied, they all failed the second time as well. I don't know a single person who did that. So, purely from a statistical point of view, I think the odds are in your favor that you want to just focus all your attention and energy and resources on passing the bar.
So what were the pass rates like the first and second time that you took the bar?
Oh man, I don't know. I think that the first time I took it, they were pretty good. They were good by California standards. California's matriculation rate is crazy. Um, and then the second time, and also it's first and second test takers, I
Hmm.
believe. So February generally has a lower pass rate. So part of the reason why I was even more so depressed after not passing July is because I think like everyone I knew passed. I mean, there's a few people that didn't. But then February was much lower, so I was one of the few that passed, and I was happy about that. But this most recent administration, not October or February, that was just taking the last round. So law students 1 year younger than us, they cut the score by about 50 points, and I think the rates went up dramatically. So I'm happy for everyone that passed through that.
Yeah, and that score would have been your first score would have been
Yeah,
good.
I don't know if you can tell. I'm a little bit vindictive about it.
Hey, I don't blame you whatsoever. Um, so we talked about how you felt that devastating feeling of not seeing your name. What was that like going through that process again when the results came out and it was time to log in to check your score or your status?
Yeah, no, man, like things just got weird. Like the week leading up to it, I was like, oh, I'm just not, I'm not going to pay attention to it. Impossible. Every hour that you get closer, it's kind of creeping up a little bit more. And I found myself doing weirds. Like I would, sometimes I pace, like I'll have like a brief, I'm reading something, and I just kind of like pace around my little studio. Um, and then I also like, I go for walks every day just to get some fresh air and some sunlight, work on my tan a little bit. And I find myself listening to U2, and I don't even like U2, but I don't know. It was just putting me at ease for some reason. It's the one record that was on iTunes that was just on everybody's phone. Anyways,
Oh my god, yeah, I remember that. I was
yeah,
like, why is this song on my phone?
yeah. So leading up to it, you have that. There's like a reoccurring theme here, that thought process. Like, what if I fail? What if I pass? If I fail, oh my God, I'm gonna have to call my mom and tell her I failed again. I'm gonna have to call my dad. I'm gonna have to tell my friends. I'm gonna have to face the music. I'm gonna have to go through another 10 weeks. So it's that kind of that bifold, either pure positivity or pure despair and desperation. And no, man, it was rough leading up to it. And I just remember the turn to 6 o'clock or whatever time it is that you can check, logged right in, saw it, and just almost like fainted, just like that, all that
Yeah.
tension and animosity and frustration and stress just leaves your body and you turn into a jellyfish. So no, man, it was crazy.
If you think about it, what it would feel like. I've had a lot of people, and I agree with this, with my personal experience. It's not what you think. It's not this pure moment of bliss and like the happy ending of like an 80s movie. It's like there's so much it's not so much just happiness. It's like it's so overwhelming that you remember what you went through for this moment and now it's here, and it's like, dude, that really sucked. I'm glad it's over. You just feel like this sense of relief, but it's also overwhelming in a sense. Not as not as devastating as failing, but yeah, it's a lot to take in.
It's kind of, you're all over the place. You reflect on what you did to get there, and not even school, like undergrad, being eligible to apply for law school, and then you kind of counter that with those thoughts of desperation, like, fuck, I almost had to do this all over again. And so your emotions are all over the place. And I remember it took me a little bit to kind of just for everything to register. And then, I sent out a text to a few people, and then my phone started going crazy, and I didn't even want to talk to anybody for a little while. I think I laid on my foam roller for a few minutes and just stretched out. But it's really hard to describe. And
Yeah.
I tip my hat to you, man. That doing it a third time must have been that much more challenging, but then that much more rewarding. So that's crazy.
Yeah, I'll be completely. I've said this on the show, so it's like public knowledge now. But the second time, I was pretty much ready to give up. So I don't come from a family of. There was nobody. My parents weren't lawyers. Nobody in my immediate family were attorneys, and even extended family. So this was like uncharted territory. So as much emotional support that a family member can give you, there really wasn't that very specific sort of advice or support that I was getting or that I could get. So I really had to struggle with that, thinking like maybe I just can't do it. And ha- but for so many of my classmates or attorneys and judges I knew from work that told me their story, I probably wouldn't have done it again. I was looking into like going into law enforcement or just other industries because I just, so that's why the inspiration behind the show is like, if it wasn't for people sharing their stories with me, who knows, this wouldn't have happened. Me swearing
Yeah.
in federal district court in Tucson would have never happened. And I think if we could do that for other people, I mean, and just take an hour to record something, let's do it, because I almost let that doubt overwhelm
Yeah,
me and
no,
take hold. Yeah.
spot on, man. You hit the nail on the head, and um, you're an inspiration, bro. Straight up, that's crazy. And to be at that precipice of thinking, I might throw it in. Um,
Yeah.
I think my support system was a little bit different, and where I have two older brothers that basically just like, you fucking do this as many times as you have to until you pass.
Yeah.
And but I think, like I said, that might even make the victory even that much sweeter, knowing that you were that much closer to just saying, I just spent 3 years of my life doing this. God knows how much in student loans, blood,
Yes.
sweat, and tears, and then to reap the victory, man, that's incredible.
Yeah. But the thought of what if I had went that other route, it's kind of scary. You know, I'm ecstatic that it worked out. A third time's a charm. The best feeling is like when you get to tell them you were right and I
Maybe,
passed.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I know. Shout out to everybody that encouraged you, man. Like, I think in a lot of
So
ways,
many people.
yeah, in a lot of ways, what we do is extremely competitive and cutthroat. I mean, it's all adversarial, but at the same time, there is also like a sense of decorum that people maintain, and not only with like taking the bar, but in like everyday practice. Like, you catch
For
more
sure.
flies with sugar than you do with vinegar. Like, if you need an extension or something, and you just don't want to be abrasive, is my point. But that's amazing that those people reached out and helped you. And look, obviously, you putting in the work was 99.9% of the victory, but that 1% of those people encouraging you not to give up, not to throw in the towel, let's keep it moving. That obviously had a huge impact on you.
Huge, huge. Um, yeah, I'm just so grateful, man. And I feel like, well, now it's my turn. I've already had so much great feedback about people I don't even know who
That's
just
yeah, that's
messaged
that's
me. Yeah,
awesome.
I'm taking it for the fourth time, the fifth time. I was ready to throw in the towel, and I'm doing it again this February, this July, and I'm like, yep, do
Yeah,
it. Hit me back when you pass, because you will.
yeah. That must be an incredible feeling, knowing that you're having an impact.
It's even more incredible knowing that that wasn't even the initial plans. The initial plan was like me as so when you talked about your bar advisor, I have one here at the law school, Amanda Bynum, and she has been so helpful to me and so many other students that are now attorneys. And when I decided to go back to school, I'm like, hey, I really want to do this project. If we could do it for credit or whatever, and I just really wanted to do it, and I thought it was just going to be for her students. And I'm like, no, it's the same amount of work to make it available to everybody. So let's just try it. And I was a little nervous about that. I'm like, I don't want to be a public figure. I don't, but to get people not only reaching out to me saying, hey, can I be on the show? I'm ready to share my story. But also people saying like, I'm taking it the fourth time or the fifth time. And I watched that whatever episode they watched and I was inspired. I'm like, man, that was the goal, but it's like 100-fold exceeded what I thought. I never thought it'd be like people I don't know that just stumbled across the content.
That's crazy, man. No, again, shout out to you. You're a philanthropist, and I get there's obviously a little bit of pressure involved with like people. I mean, obviously I don't know what goes on behind the scenes. I mean, I bugged you like 2 weeks ago. I was like, damn, bro, let me get on the show, and
That's the funny part is like a lot of this stuff happens through unconventional channels like Instagram. I've gotten so many guests through messaging on Instagram or in the comments. So it's really remarkable. Let's just use these resources.
I
Like
mean,
law students are on Instagram all the time. So Instagram is like a powerful vehicle. You know what I mean? So let's just use it instead of saying like, don't go on Instagram, you should be reading. Like, no, they're gonna go on it to take a break from school. So let's just use it.
I think one of your priorities should be just exposure, right? Exposure under the pretenses of like education and learning, you know. So Instagram, email, whatever you got to do.
Yeah. So I mean, when I saw you're working in complex litigation now, I remember wanting to take that class because, to be honest, I'm assuming it's like class action suits, and I really wasn't sure what it was, and that's why I wanted to take it, but I ended up not taking it. Um, how are you enjoying that field?
Yeah, no, it's funny because it fell into my lap. You
The
know,
best things do.
yeah, no lie, that's the truth. But no, I'm lucky and fortunate enough that I've worked in a bunch of different industries: real estate, truth and lending, some government stuff, personal injury, government law. Um, so everything you do, you either realize you like it or you don't like it. I did some PI, despise it.
Mm.
Everything felt shady to me. I mean, no disrespect to the PI lawyers out there. I was just unfortunate. I had a few clients that were kind of like ambulance chasers, and it really just kind of put me off to the whole thing. So I made the transition, and it's incredible. It's really incredible. I had zero exposure to it initially, so I'm literally about 6 months ago. I just started from scratch. You know, I don't know what a obviously I know what a class suit is, but like motion to compel arbitrations, oppositions, and then motions for protective orders, so on and so forth. A Bel Air West notice, like how we get those all the time. Like I get them from Apple all the time when a class action lawsuit settles or something like that.
Yeah.
Um, but being able to learn about it first hands on, it's incredible. So I really like it, but it's challenging. And tying it back to the bar, I'm starting to realize that these things are kind of cyclical. It's first it's LSAT, then it's law school, then it's the bar, and then now that I'm practicing, I'm facing like similar challenges. Like I wrote a brief 2 weeks ago, and then I got it back from senior counsel, and it was just destroyed. So it's kind of that learning curve, and um, not to get too political, but one thing that Dr. Fauci said that really stood out to me was it's good to be a perpetual student. You have to always be learning, otherwise you're
Oh
idle.
yeah. Oh,
And
that's true. I mean,
yeah,
it's you never arrive. Like, I feel like a lot of people that I know that are personal friends that aren't law graduates or law students, they think that after I got sworn in, it was just like this coronation, and it's like the greatest ever. I'm like, no, this was just the next step. There's like so many other steps. You know what I mean? And there's always gonna be that next great challenge. So I
stepping
just feel
stones,
like, yeah, so this
stepping
was
stones, man,
definitely a
one after
stepping
the
stone.
other.
We just had a few students taking the February bar, and we have even more students that are going to be taking their first bar exam in July. You told your story, but direct your final thoughts to our students.
Yeah.
Like, what would
um,
you say to a group of students that are taking their first bar exam this July, just like you did and I did back in July 2019?
yeah, man. I mean, usually when people give me open-ended questions, it's problematic because you just opened up Pandora's box. I could sit here and do a whole other episode, but I'll try and focus. But no, I think the important thing is just to like remain yourself. If you like to play basketball, every now and then play basketball. If you like to go to the gym, go to the gym. If you like to go to the pub and watch English football every now and then, do that. No matter what, you have to put in the work. Like there's no ifs, ands, or buts. And I think the more work you put in, the more comfortable you are as time evolves and you get closer to the exam. But it's also about balance. Like you can't drive yourself crazy. Take a few days off right before. It's just, I mean, obviously be diligent and put in the work, but you need to be balanced. You need to take a day off. You need to stay well rested and sleep. Don't drink too much coffee. Don't study the night before. Like people are it's just shocking what people do. I literally can't describe it. Um, I screwed up. I bought like a really cheap hotel that was like 10 or 15 minutes away from Pasadena. And one, I've never felt more at risk in my entire life than this like hood hotel I stayed at. So get like a nice hotel. And also the second time I was like a few blocks away. So it was nice, man. Get up, walk around a little bit, get some blood flow. People thought I was crazy, but like before the exam, I would like stand up and like stretch and do some weird like jumping jacks or anything like that. But just focus on. I sound a little bit preachy, but focus on yourself, man. It's a challenge against yourself. Do the work, stay humble, stay confident, and you know, just be comfortable and take faith in the fact that you're gonna pass. Just have to positive reinforcement.
Yeah, you are going to pass. That's for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah, man. That's funny that you mentioned the hotel thing. It's like well, let me save a couple bucks. And then next thing you know, you're like, yeah, I would have let Zach, I appreciate you stopping by, and I know that your insights are going to be helpful to so many people, not just our students, but everyone watching this that's feeling a certain way, either approaching their first bar exam or trying again after they've already attempted. So, we're here to just let everybody know that so many people have gone through it, and I interviewed people in key positions that I would have never believed, like that they went through the same thing that I did. Just because the assumption is that they're in this position and they always excelled, but some of them had to. Not everyone's a good test taker. There's so many factors, and a lot of people are going through this, and it's you're never out of the race. You just have to
Yeah,
tune
no,
up and go.
you learn life lessons from this stuff, man. It's a big challenge, and overcoming it, you're just that much better of a professional and a person and a member of society. I mean, there's nothing bad about it. So, yeah, man, appreciate you having me on. It was fun. Any follow up, anything else, just let me know.
Yeah, most
Yeah, I
definitely.
guess last thing is have a sense of humor about it. Like you can't take life too seriously, especially these days, man. It's things are just crazy in general.
Yeah. Well, thanks to our special guest Zach Greenberg, guys. We'll be seeing you in the next episode. It's been an honor to have guests like Zach all throughout this season, and I hope you've enjoyed it. So we'll tune in next time. Take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. Stay cool. Stay calm, and always stay in the fight. See you guys later.
All right, brother.
We hope you've enjoyed this episode. Be sure to like and subscribe to the Bar Stories Project's YouTube channel so that you don't miss out on any new content. The Bar Stories Project is brought to you by creator and executive producer Chuck Bonaza, associate producer Patrick Ryan, original music by Justin St. John and Christian Savage. Join us next time on the Bar Stories Project.